And inside, I'm just saying, God, would you heal my heart just like you healed my wife's body? And I felt when he healed my heart. And I felt when he told me, you could trust me.
Went to sleep. The next morning I wake up, and that's when it hit me that hatred for that man that had killed my brother was gone.
It was almost like a voice that spoke to my heart and said that I didn't need that there was something better. And that immediately, from that point on, I lost the complete desire for drugs.
And Walter knew that I had been healed, but I wanted to be sure before I testified of it. And now I get to testify because I'm absolutely sure that God healed me of depression.
The other two things were strengthened relationships with my family and with my God. November 3rd was the worst and best day of my life.
Hello, everyone. This is Stephen with the Would Somebody Testify podcast. This month, instead of releasing an episode that is a single interview, this is actually a compilation of several small interviews. Or rather more accurately, often at the end of people's testimonies, I would ask them for miscellaneous small testimonies, in the sense they were short and fairly quick, and I've put these together into one single episode. Hope you enjoy. I have you, Sister Teresa, mentioning that you had feeling sick, like maybe pneumonia, and from one breath to another, felt better. Do you remember that?
I sure do. It was February 1990. It was winter. We were going to Jersey Church at the time. I was 20 years old, and from every indication, I had pneumonia. I was wheezing. I had a lot of pressure on my chest. As long as I was rather still, I would not cough. But, moving around, walking, I would have a lot of coughing. And so it came church time. Well, you go to church. I didn't have a fever. As long as I was still, I could, kind of keep the cough at bay. And so I went to church. And it was Sunday night. And they called on our family to sing. And I did not go up to sing because I couldn't sing. I mean, I would start coughing. So while my parents are up singing, the people, different ones, start to stand. So I stand also, very, very carefully, very, very still. And I am praying inside myself, saying, God, would you please take this pressure off my chest? I can't breathe. It just felt like, an elephant on your chest, it's just, and so, I was praying that when all of a sudden, the next breath, there was no pressure, there was no wheezing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I took another breath and a little deeper, and it's all gone. And I just was breathing deeper and deeper, and it was like instantaneous from one breath to the next. So like after my parents sit down, they call in the youth choir. Well, I'm like, well, I'm healed. Like, it's gone. I can sing now. So I go up to sing with the youth choir. And before we start singing, I share with them. I didn't come up with my parents because I couldn't breathe. But now I'm coming up because God just healed me, like right now. And it was something I never forgot. My Kara we just had Philip and Kara. She would have been less than a year old, and she was having reoccurring earaches. I took her to the doctor. They gave her antibiotic. She got better. The next month, she had another one, like wake up in the night, can't sleep, fever. And so I took her to the doctor again, more antibiotic. Okay, we're over it. The third month, the next month, it's the same thing. And so I go to one and I said, I just don't want to, this is a pattern. I don't want to take her to the doctor again, but we have to do something for our baby. And so no home remedies, nothing would soothe her. And so I said, well, what can we do? And he says, well, you could fast. And he just said it like so matter of fact. It so happened that particular day, he was changing the brakes on one of the vehicles. So he was at home, you know, there in the front yard. And I was like, yeah. But I mean, I've prayed for my baby. We have prayed for the baby, you know, and I don't know. So I called more like an acquaintance. I really didn't know the person. It was a young married couple, and I knew that they had many, many testimonies of healing. And so I asked them to share some of the healings, and just one right after another. And it was just very, very faith building. And I don't know what happened. We obviously were praying for our baby. But that night when we went to bed, she never had another earache. That was before Isaac was born. When we had already moved in this house and we had been here a while. I want to say she was 10, 12 years old, something like that. So it had been years. One night she wakes up in the middle of the night. My ear. Oh, it just hurts, you know. And so I take her across the house to where the light's a little brighter and I can see, and I look in her ear and there is a fly. A fly had landed in her ear. And of course, you know, he's trying to get out, but is right there. I get the fly out. Ah, thank you, Mom. Goes back to bed. When God does something, he does it well. And she's never suffered again with earaches like that I know of. So, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was an ant.
An ant? I thought it was a fly. Okay.
Well, you were there, and I only heard the story like once or twice. So.
Yeah. We can ask Kara what it was.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's see. I thought of one that came. Oh, you mentioned that when you first got saved, you heard something of Nana and Papa's testimonies and other testimonies. That you would get prayed for your sniffles, and they went away. You didn't think much about it. So you want to tell a little bit about that?
Basically, when I first got saved, then I quickly realized that, I mean, these people pray for the sick. I had not been saved where Catholic people don't do that. So that was something new. And I thought, oh, you get saved. If you get sick, you get prayed for. Well, then Nana would real frequent get up and testify of big miracles that had happened with their 13 children. I mean, just a big miracle of them having their children at home without any doctor help. That was a big miracle, each one for 13 of them. And she would go down the list of Raymond being dropped on his head. And, when he had just started walking, I think, and then they thought he might be crippled. And Brother Dimmer, I think, broke his collarbone. Just several instances that the Lord had healed there. And I always enjoyed it. I thought that's just what you do. You get sick, you go sit on the altar, and the Lord will heal you. And it's just the childlike faith, and so when I would feel like I was getting a cold or a cold was going around, then I would just go sit on the altar, and the symptoms would go away. And I remember one time Mom saw the signs of, and she told me, so you're getting sick, you need to take this and this. I said no, and she was real persistent. You need to take it, you're going to get really sick, and you're getting sick or you are sick. And I told her, no, I'm just going to go to church and get prayed for. And I was afraid that she was going to put something in my drink because she was so, wanted me to take that medicine that I would not take anything from her in a drink. And I went to church and got prayed for and got better, so that was just, I thought that was just a matter of fact that you feel like you get sick or you are sick, and just go sit on the altar, and the Lord is going to touch you, is going to heal you. And just by seeing the people and, that they were trusting the Lord. And it's just some down the line, I don't know what happened, but anyway, I know that it's not on God. It's, if anything, it's on us. But the Lord can heal and can touch.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been thankful that the Lord has showed himself, and, and has blessed our family in such a mighty way.
Mighty.
So many different, big things and little things and all in between.
Yes. Yes.
This is kind of small, but no testimony is too big or too small. If the Lord moves, the Lord moves. This would happen in our most recent revival with Brother Isaac Brown. Sunday morning, I knelt down to pray right as service started, and something in my right ear popped kind of weird. And I thought, man, that kind of hurts pretty bad. And it went away, and service was fine. And I went home after church, took a nap. And when I woke up, my ear was in real rough shape. It was almost every time just about every 5-10 seconds, it would be a sharp, sharp pain in my ear, like there was something in there, except I ran a Q-tip through there and couldn't find anything. And it came out surprisingly clean. There was nothing in there, and it hurt really bad. And that night I sat on the altar and got prayed for, and the pain really didn't even go away. It was no big move of God. Nothing crazy happened. But the next morning I woke up, and right as I woke up, I put my hand to my ear. I sleep on my side, and I kind of turned over and put my hand on my ear, and out of my ear that had been hurting was about a popcorn-sized, like a popcorn kernel-sized bit of dry blood just rolled out of my ear. And it was there, and I looked at it. It was surprising how big it was. And that was it. There was no pain in my ear. I kind of yawned, stretched, pulled, and nothing else. And I don't know what the Lord did, but he took care of that. Just sat on the altar, and the prayers of the saints saved the sick.
I don't know how much time I have, but I'll just say this one. It was at Raisin City. I started having these bad, painful headaches, and I would get them in the back of my head. And it was like I'm going to describe it as a bolt of lightning. It wasn't a bolt of lightning, of course, because I'd be dead. But it felt like, somebody was just hit me in the back of my head, like a baseball bat, if that's how it feels. And I would just wince with pain. And there were several times where it would get me and I'd fall down to the floor, to the ground. There were times I'd be in the church and I'd fall down, at home, I'd fall down with that pain. Times I'd go to work and I'd fall down with that pain. Robin and Rosemary said, man, you need to go and get that. You need to go be seen. So I went and got seen. They prescribed to me some kind of crazy medication that had, it was time sensitive. And when I read it, it was for depression. And I told the doctor, I said, man, I'm not depressed. I am not depressed. I got this bad headache and it's not because of depression. Anyway, I had to take it. They had prescribed it, I guess, as an off label for folks who have depression. Anyway, I don't remember the name of it. That's neither here nor there, but it was timed. I had to take it, at a certain time. So I'm at Raisin City one night. I'd been taking it. I can't remember how long I'd been taking this, but here I am at Raisin City, and I'm pacing like I normally do on the right side of the church when altar call is made. I'm pacing on the right side of the church on the men's side, and I'm walking up and down that little hallway right there. And I remember that I have to take my meds, and I had my meds in my left pocket, my shirt. And the clock is, right above the foyer right there. So I'm looking at the clock, and I said, oh man, I got to take my meds. So I'm praying. And so I look up at the clock, and I reach over to grab my medication so I can go outside to the water fountain and take my medication. When I do that, I heard these words: I am the Lord God that healeth thee. And I took my hands out of my pocket and I go, that was my voice. That's me saying that. So I keep on pacing up and down, praying. And time frame. So I look up at the clock again. I reach in my pocket again to grab my meds and to go out again to the water fountain and drink my meds. And again, I heard, I am the Lord God that healeth thee. And I said, oh, I know this verse. And it happened one more time. Same voice, same statement. Again, the third time. So I grabbed my meds and I threw them out. And from that point up until now, never had a pain in my head at all. Not that pain. Not that particular pain. I've had other pains, headaches, regular headaches. But that particular pain, it never happened again. Awesome. So
I was about 6 or 7. I went to the bank with my mom and Carruthers. And as always, she saw somebody that she knew. And it was a lady she had worked with in Raisin City. And I loved her. And so I was like Ava, really excited to see people. And I went running in the bank and they had just mopped. And I slid and my tooth hit the counter. There was a bar across the counter. And it broke. And it hurt so bad, like horrible, excruciating pain. And so I was a lot of drama. I don't know if my mom even got her business done at the bank. She ended up taking me to Aunt Judy and Uncle Ricky's house and having them pray for me. We didn't go to the doctor at the time. We didn't go to the doctor until I was about 13. And so they came out, Aunt Judy and Uncle Rick. Rick was there doing his paperwork or something. And he wasn't always there in the day, so it was nice that he was there too. And they came out to the van and they prayed for me. And I had childlike faith. And I believed the pain went away. That excruciating pain I was feeling eased up. And so I thought in my mind, when I get home and I look in the mirror, I'm going to have my tooth back. Like, that's what I thought. And I looked in the mirror and there was no change. I had a broken tooth. And so I didn't understand. I thought, I guess nothing happened, I didn't even give glory to God that the pain left. Like, I just thought, maybe that just goes away. And I didn't have sensitivity to cold or hot. All those things that you normally would have after you broke your tooth. I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know any of that stuff. Well, I went, I don't know how many years later, maybe 30 years later, maybe 29 years later, something like that. I went to a dentist and he was looking at my teeth. I hadn't been to a dentist in a long time and he was trying to map out all the things that he needed to do for me. And he said, so when did you break your tooth? And I told him when I was 6 years old. And he looked at me and he said, yeah. He says, do you have hot and cold sensitivity? And I'm like, no. What else did he ask? It's just miraculous, he said. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, well, to have this large of a break, this tooth should be dead. He said that large of an impact, usually by now, your tooth would be dead. And a lot of times you have a lot of sensitivity in that area, where it's broken. It's like, really? Yeah. And then I was just like, wow, God did do a healing that day. He healed the sensitivity that day. I didn't have problems with it all my life. And he made the tooth strong where it didn't die. And Sister Darla had issues with one of her teeth and had to go through like surgeries and stuff. And I realized what a big deal it is when one of your teeth, dies. And I just thought that was such a neat thing to later see that God had done a miracle for me. I just didn't have the context to realize what he had done, in the moment. But yeah, that was a miracle that God did when I was a little girl.
Do I remember right that he said the break did go down to the root?
It knocked my tooth completely crooked. The root is like dislodged. So he could tell by the way my tooth was in my mouth that it had been a very, very large impact. You could tell by that part.
Okay.
I don't think that's cracked in up there. It might have been, but if I said that detail, I forgot it by now.
It's been a while since I heard you tell
Yeah.
them. I didn't start taking notes on people's testimonies until more recently.
Yeah. I was the little girl. I had asthmatic problems really bad. And every winter, like I would have to be propped up on like 5 pillows or I couldn't hardly breathe at night. I was just very congested and had horrible wheezing and horrible problems with my asthma until before I was 13, maybe 11 or 12, I got prayer. And that winter I didn't have it. I used to get like almost pneumonia type stuff. And I have never had problems like that since then. Like, I have a little bit of allergies sometimes, but I rarely get sick, like with a cough or like, like congestion, deep congestion. And I used to get such bad congestion up until I was 13, maybe.
Congestion of the lungs only or in the face as well?
It was deep in my lungs mostly. Okay. I mean, I would get it everywhere, but mostly my lungs would get really, really compacted.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way you use congested and the way I use congested.
Yeah.
Of course, I also haven't had
no, but it was very miraculous to me because I had every single winter of my life that struggle of breathing, and I have not struggled with it at all for years and years and years. I never dreamed I would be that clear from it, but yeah, God's helped me with that.
All right, thank you for part 2. I'll do something with that.
Mm-hmm. You know what's crazy is I got prayer for that, and I did not know when it happened because it was a seasonal thing. I just knew that season I didn't have it like I'd had it before. So I wish I knew like the time God did it for me, but I just knew I never had it after that. So I know like Sister Katie Holm got healed from asthma, and she, I think, got more of like where she knew exactly when it happened. We had just got married like a year and a half prior to this, maybe a little longer than that. And I was pregnant with Cole. I was probably about 6 months pregnant with Cole. And our vacuum cleaner was not a great vacuum cleaner to begin with. It was pretty cheapy. But it completely stopped picking up, and it was spitting stuff out all over the carpet. So I was trying to sweep carpet, And one day I was sweeping my carpet and I just started bawling. Nobody was home with me. And I thought, how am I going to have a baby on this floor when I'm just sweeping? I was just like, there's no way. And I could not see how I could even ask Michael for a vacuum cleaner at the time. I knew he wanted one, he was trying to take care of us too. He would have probably tried, but I could not picture, I knew maybe if I could find one for $40, but every time I would look, it would be like $100, $200 for a vacuum cleaner. And I knew you get what you paid for too. So I just got down at my couch and I prayed, God, is that I think we can afford maybe $40. If somebody could tell us they have a used vacuum cleaner and I could pay like $40, that would be good. But I really feel like I need a vacuum cleaner because I'm going to have a baby on these floors. I just prayed about it. And then I got up and there was a ring in the doorbell. I had just got up from the couch and I was like, who could be coming over? I don't even think I had combed my hair properly. I was just embarrassed. I opened the door and I had just quit working for an elder lady and she just passed away. And it was her daughters. They were at the door. We're cleaning out Mom's house today and we know you just got married. And we were wanting to know if there's anything of her household that you would need. You're making a household and we're just going to take it all to Goodwill, everything. So if there's anything you would be interested in, we'd like you to have it, like furniture. You know her house, the couches she had, anything that you want, you can have it. And I was like, well, actually, our vacuum cleaner just broke. If she had a vacuum cleaner, I would love to have that because, that would be something I could use. And they're like, oh, great, that's awesome, and They come back in a few minutes with the Kirby vacuum cleaner. And I was really embarrassed then. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot she had a Kirby. I said, you guys can get money online for that. Like, you don't even be giving me a Kirby vacuum cleaner. And they're like, no, seriously, we're just giving it to Goodwill. We're not having a sale. We're not selling anything. And I was just floored. They left and I had this Kirby vacuum cleaner. It was like abundantly above what I could even ask or think. I literally did not remember that she had a Kirby vacuum cleaner. I would not have asked for it if I would have remembered. So God knew that, so he let me forget it probably. But the funny thing is, years later, okay, we're talking like 14 years later, my Kirby vacuum cleaner finally went kaput. Okay? It was an old one, and then I had it 14 years. Those things last a long time. Whether they're the best vacuum cleaner or not, I don't know, but they last a long time. And finally, I was going to get a new one. And I kind of wanted a Shark vacuum cleaner because my mother-in-law has one and I like how it works, you know. So I was telling Michael, I was working at the time and I was like, I could buy it with the money I'm working, you know. And I saw one at Costco. It was blue. And he was looking on OfferUp one day and he found one for $40. And it was a Shark and it was blue. Like the one at Costco I was looking at for like $200 something. And the lady had accidentally left it in the storage. She didn't know where it was. She thought it was lost and she had bought her a whole new one. So it was like brand new vacuum cleaner for $40. And I just thought God had a sense of humor because he honored my prayer 14 years later when I thought I could have afforded $200. But once again, just showing up, showing me I'm listening to you. Yeah.
Thank you all for listening.